And I just started to realize that it wasn't so much about like helping people that were sick, but helping people like physically sick, but helping people in a time where they needed hope. And I really believe that, my life's purpose is to help people step into their divine self. So if I can empower and shed light on you and so that you can shine it on other people, that's what my gift is, my dharma is.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. It's Audley Stevenson back for another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. This is the Audacious Living Podcast, and I appreciate you for taking some time to be here as we continue our ongoing goal of helping listeners live their best audacious lives ever. As always, I encourage you to connect with us through our social media channels. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're also on YouTube, and if you tap that bell down below, ding, 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 you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well and stay connected to all good things audacious related. So like, follow, subscribe, tell a friend, and let's keep this audaciousness going. Now, we've just closed out the month of March, which is a month that typically recognizes and celebrates women, and we call it International Women's Month. And I thought a great way to sort of bookend that month was to have mindset coach Robina Abramson-Walling join me on the podcast. Now, Robina has dedicated much of her efforts and energy and work on helping women, particularly mothers, find their true authentic self. And she does so by empowering them to take control of their lives. And I think it's important to understand while we don't have control of everything that happens in our lives, we can control our responses. And that's, in a sense, how we can take control and take responsibility. Robina shares her own personal story, and I'm really glad that she did, because she talks about her journey and the path that she needed to take to get to where she is now. And then, of course, how she's using that to help others. Really, really appreciate Robina for being here and dropping some great insights and knowledge. So without any further ado, here is our conversation. Enjoy. Robina, thank you for joining me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you with me today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for asking me to be here. It's such an honor and a privilege for me. Thank you.
I will very much appreciate you accepting. And again, as we were talking earlier with International Women's Month wrapping down, I thought it made so much sense considering the audience. You focus on women and helping to empower women. So there's such a connection, and maybe we just dive right into it and sort of talk about your work and sort of your focus a little bit.
Yeah, sure. It's funny because I graduated from a degree of nursing, and it was always about helping people for me. And I just started to realize that it wasn't so much about like helping people that were sick, but helping people like physically sick, but helping people in a time where they needed hope. And I really believe that, my life's purpose is to help people step into their divine self. So if I can empower and shed light on you and so that you can shine it on other people, that's what my gift is, my dharma is. And I've done a lot of things in my life, from nursing to being a personal trainer, to owning a gym, to working in social marketing and being a leader in that, and becoming a coach now, a mindset and a coach for women, especially moms. I love to work with mothers. I really want people to find their purpose and to find their identity. And I truly believe we are all brought to this earth to find our gift and to share it with other people. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that I work with, they don't know what their gift is. They don't know what is their unique gift or contribution to this world. And so that's the work that I do, is help people really step into that. And then so that they can feel confident enough to share it and light with other people.
I love so much of what you said there, because you started talking about empowerment, which I'm such a big fan of. You know, if you can teach someone or show someone or guide someone how to do for themselves, oh my gosh, then it's such a well, certainly a wonderful feeling I can imagine. And even if you sort of talk about some of your, whether it be nursing or personal training, it's similar kind of work where you're helping people get to that place where they want to be, not necessarily, you know, taking them there, but showing them the pathway to get there. And when you can do that for individuals, that there's so much power in that, isn't there?
It's so great. You know, I think anyone can teach anyone to do something. Like I can show you how to bake a cake, but that's not the empowerment part of it. Like the empowerment part of it is knowing that you can walk away with some tools and tips that you can literally go to someone else's house and show them how to bake a cake so that they can show somebody else. Like, we can teach people things all day long, but until they can see how it applies to them and learn to incorporate it and embody it into their own life, that's the real gift, right? I say there are so many people that, like, personal growth is a big industry right now. There's coaching everywhere, and power to everyone, because the world needs more people that are going to help ignite it. And I really believe that there are podcasts, there are books, self-help is a big thing. Self-help is a big thing, but what I do know for sure is that you should just put the book back if you don't know how to embody it, right? We're constantly just learning how to go through the mechanical actions of things or listen to a book, but we don't know how to apply it. And the application is the most important thing, because that will allow you to not only step into it, but also to share it with somebody else.
I've always been a big fan of sharing our stories, sharing our journeys, the ups and the downs, right? Because there's so much lessons that we can take from that. But the point that you made around that application, you know, again, the books, the podcasts, the seminars, the lessons, all of those things are great. But if that application, that action piece, if it's not there, then you've really not accomplished much of anything.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, it's so funny because a friend of mine called it shelf love instead of self-love, right? And I thought that was so brilliant, because it literally is, you know, that extra added piece. We all know we need to go to a gym. Like if you want to lose weight, you know that you need to do certain things, right? There's a knowing doing gap. We know what we need to do, but we can't do it. Right. And so that's why coaches help. That's why, you know, mentors help. That's why somebody there to show you your blind spots really helps you walk in that direction. But what I love about what I do so much is that I can help hold you to the highest standard of yourself, even when you're going to let yourself off the hook for it. And that's what I think is a beautiful thing. It's because I can speak that I want something, but it's not until I speak it to somebody to hold me accountable will that want actually become my present tense, right? It will show up in my physical world. So I think that that's something that's really important, is you need to have that accountability. You need someone who's going to call you out on your blind spots and say, yo, that's not where you want to be headed. Like, stop like selling yourself short. I think that that is the biggest thing that a lot of people need, is that extra piece.
And it's so interesting because that extra piece, it's really small. It's not where all the work is. The work is what the individual ends up doing. But that extra piece is the biggest difference, because that's that shot in the arm, that thing that they need to go in. So it's wonderful that you're able to provide that to so many clients.
Yeah. I think another thing that you just said that really spoke to me was that the inner work is the hard work, right? And the thing is that a lot of us want to move in the direction of our desires, but we're afraid to peel the layers, right? There's like things that have happened to us, usually when we're around 6 or 7, that literally gets the feelings that get stuck within us. And then if, let's say, a friend talks rudely to you, it's not just about that situation, but it's rooted in the feeling that it started back in the day, right? And it's been a suppressed feeling. And it's like your body, your mind is like, oh, I know that feeling again. So I'm going to get angry the way I was angry back then. It's not really about that person, but that was a trigger, you know? And so one of the things that I really encourage people to do is we have to go back, right? And it's peeling the layers is the stuff that people don't want to do. Everyone wants a quick fix.
Yes.
You know, I want to make $1 million. They want to figure that out, but they don't want to look at, well, where are all the self-limiting beliefs and the paradigms and the stories and the way that you're showing up from the past is affecting you from getting that. You know, so that is the hard work, but man, it's such good work. It is such good work because you become aware of everything.
Very, very much so. And I think of all those individuals who also aren't even aware of where it starts from. So you've got two sides here. Those that know what needs to be done but don't want to do it, and the other side that don't even know what's happening to them on the inside, or or that triggers even exist, or that there is an issue of some sort that's been buried and just, you know, life has added more and more onto that, and they don't even know that there's things under that need to be uncovered. And for those individuals, you know, they're also a challenge, because that unknowing thing, right, Robina, is how do you get past that?
You know, I really believe that, and it's unfortunate that a lot of times we don't seek help until we are at our bottom. Right. Like, and it's when we feel like we've hit rock bottom that we actually put our hand out for help. But what if I were to say to everyone here that it doesn't have to take you to be at rock bottom? Like, if you're not getting the results that you want in life, don't wait until you feel hopeless. It's when you start to realize that it's challenging, that things aren't easy. That's when you need to start asking for help. And then you ask people that have done what you want to achieve.
That's right.
Right? Tony Robbins says you imitate excellence. Right? Find somebody who has what you want. And it doesn't have to be a monetary thing. It could be a quality. It could be someone that public speaks. Maybe you love that. Maybe it's someone that has a podcast, you know, whatever it is, look to somebody who has what you want and ask them for help. And it doesn't have to be a paid coach. It could be a mentorship. It's an exchange, right? And I truly believe that what we do here is we literally are trying to shorten the distance that it takes for everyone else to get to where you are. We're not in a state of competition. We're all about a collaboration. How can I help serve you? That's what being human is about. It's about connection, right? We've lost that somewhere along the way, though.
I'd agree with you, and I think you really make some strong points just again around, you know, what our purpose is as humans, and what we have, that obligation, if you will, to one another and helping one another. And I think that's a really key point. I want to go back and specifically, again, we talked off the top about the work that you do specifically with women. Talk about how you landed there, why you felt it was important to make empowerment of women your focus.
Well, I would say that I was a woman who literally became somebody because of everybody else. I mean, a lot of people, not just women, go through this. You know, we have parents' expectations of us. We have, if your parents are anything like mine, I mean, my father's West Indian, my mom's like 10th generation Canadian. So we're a very multicultural family, but it's all about image and how things look to other people. And I remember when I was 17, I went to Trinidad, and my uncle was like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, well, I want to be a social worker. And he said, get a real job, be a nurse. And I went back home, and what did I do? I went and became a nurse. And not that it was so far off from, you know, from social work, but the point is I allowed someone else's opinion, belief, idea take over mine.
Right.
And that was the beginning of that pattern continuing. Right. Then I became a nurse. So I was a nurse, and then I met my husband at the time. So he was Jewish. I gave up my religion, right? I literally started this whole thing where I just lost my identity of who I was. And the more and more women that I talked to over the years, I realized that this is a common trend. We give ourselves to everyone else, and we are selfless to ourselves. We don't give to ourselves.
Right. That
And
mothering role almost. We're going,
oh, yeah,
right?
and it's an expectation, right?
Mm,
You're a mother. You shouldn't be doing those things. You know, you go back to work after mat leave, and it's like the guilt and all these other things that are constructs that we have fallen into. So I've spent the last 10 years really focusing in on how I got my life back and how I recreated a life on my terms and not on anyone else's. And I realized that as I was doing that, man, did I make a lot of people mad. Right? Because the box that I
yeah.
had been put in,
Right. Right.
I had busted out of. And
That's
so
right.
people wanted the Robina that was the
In the
person
box.
that would
Right.
bend over backwards for them at
Right.
my own expense. People
Mm,
wanted the person that literally didn't really feel confident anymore, didn't care about her appearance, didn't care about my opinions, didn't care about any of that stuff.
right. Right.
And then what ends up happening, you find a woman who is upset, resentful, lack of purpose, feels unconfident, low self esteem, and so many other things
Yep.
because I've sacrificed myself to
Yes.
give to everyone else. And we know when we are on an airplane, what is the first thing that they say to us?
That's right.
They say to us, put the mask
Mask.
on you
Well,
first
yep.
before you put it on everyone else. Well, why are we doing that with our life?
Right. Right. Right.
It
Yep.
makes no sense.
Right, right. It's
So,
funny that road to sort of finding yourself can be lonely sometimes because
right.
people. Okay,
Sorry about that.
no problem. I've got little
Small
ones.
guard dog.
I've got a couple upstairs too, so I get you loud and clear. Um, as I was saying, that pathway to finding yourself sometimes can be lonely, and I think you sort of touched on it. There people expect you to behave or act a certain way that's compromising of yourself and suiting their needs and making them happy, but it doesn't give you what you want. And so when you get to that point where I'm busting out of it, I can certainly see where it's just you by yourself all of a sudden.
Yep. And I mean, it came to a point where family members stopped talking to me. And it was because I was a shame for them, right? It was, I wasn't fitting into the image that they wanted other people to have of our family. So, long story short, it wasn't necessarily what I needed. And I realized over time that it's not about what everyone else needs, it's my life.
Right.
And so over the course of 10 years, I've really been working on how to set up myself with a bulletproof vision for my life, right? How to set myself up in a way that when I wake up, I am happy because I can't give to everyone else if I'm not happy, right? And
Right.
so what kind of mother, sorry, what kind of mother am I if my kids are getting the worst of me all the time?
Right.
Right? The person that is upset because I can't be me. Right? What kind of human being do I show up for my family? What kind of business owner do I have with my employees? What kind of energy do I share with the world? It's not a great one.
Right.
And so the only way to get that back is to literally change the way I saw myself.
Right. Right.
And that's how things begin to change. Is you don't necessarily have to change, but you do have to change the way you see yourself. And that's a lot of the work that I do.
That realization process would be it's just sort of there's lots that come with it. It's challenging, it's hard, it's definitely not easy,
No.
and oftentimes there's a spark or an awareness, and for some people that awareness comes when you sort of hit rock bottom, right?
Yep.
And you've got to get all the way to the bottom to sort of realize this is not where you want to be. Is that kind of essentially what you experience?
Oh, 100%. And the thing is that like, I think what ends up happening is when you can't express yourself, because as human beings, we have to express. That's what we do. It's through
Right.
speaking, it's through acting, it's through our actions, it's through our beings. And when you suppress yourself,
Right.
just imagine, just like those feelings that I talked about. I mean, that is what is staying inside of you. And slowly but surely, you find somebody who is like just doesn't know who they are anymore, can't vocalize themselves, feel like they blend in with the wall. They feel they have no worth, and it's a very disempowering feeling. And especially if you're raising children
Right. Right.
that are learning from your modeled behavior.
You're teaching them. Right. Right.
So, I have boys and girls. I have 4 kids, and I can say that my children are learning to take steps to be their own individuals.
Amazing. Amazing.
Despite how hard it is for me sometimes, right? Because we have ideas from our past parents and how they raised us and how we should do. And the generation of kids right now are very different. They're expressing themselves, and the society that we're living in is supporting that now, which is fantastic. But imagine if I didn't set that standard for my children, they would feel that they had to suppress their feelings as well. So it's breaking generational curses as well. And breaking generational patterns. And when you look at patterns, and man, patterns are really interesting. If you can break down things like your family tree and see where things happen. And I was able to trace back like things like alcoholism, or things like cancer, or divorce, or children out of wedlock, all these things. And they were patterns that have just kept going.
Right. And yeah. And it's interesting how much you can learn from looking back, and you can pick up all sorts of things and recognize and understand those patterns. But again, breaking them, that's where the real work comes in. And so again, more work there. A word that sort of came to mind as you were talking about, these feelings that women sometimes can experience is the word lost, right? Not knowing who you are. You sort of touched on that. Not, you're looking in the mirror, not recognizing that individual. And it could even be physical appearance, how you look, your attitude, everything could just be different. That I wonder if you sort of talk about that lost feeling and how detrimental it can be for people.
Oh, it is so detrimental because it's a dark place, right? And when you're losing sense of self, I mean, when you think about it, we base our whole identity on our identity from our childhood. And we don't really know who we are until, I would say, 30s, 40s. Like that's really and truly when you really get to know who you are, because we're being somebody else for so long, right? We're being a daughter, we're being a spouse, we're being a mother, we're being an employee, we're being all these things. And being lost is very isolating and very lonely. And so think about, being in an environment where you feel like you're not worthy of anything, or that you have no direction. It is a very scary place. And so when you find yourself in those kind of situations, there's no hope. There is no hope. So my hope is that I can show people that, I've been there, right? I've been to a lot of these places and I got out. And what we end up doing is we find evidence in people. Wow, if she can do that, then maybe I can too.
Yeah.
Right. And we collect evidence along the way to use as our little breadcrumbs towards our path.
Yes.
Right. And so the beautiful thing about finding evidence is it doesn't have to be exact evidence, and it doesn't have to be our evidence.
Nope.
But it has to be evidence that things can happen. I mean, when we saw Obama become the first Black president, I mean, that showed people of color that, wow, we can actually do bigger things. Think about when you were even in school. Did you have any teachers of color? I never had any teachers that looked like me.
I had one supply teacher, and that was all. And he wasn't deemed as a real teacher; he was a supply teacher.
Right. So you see what I'm saying? I mean, even for my daughter, and now, I mean, my daughter is darker skinned than me, but I go out of my way to find dolls that look like her, so that that she can feel like there's an inclusion. And so if you find that there are people out there that have made it out of the dark, And that person can be my light. Well, maybe I can be the light for that person over there that sees something in me that resides in them.
Yeah.
Because here's the truth, Audley, I'm going to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
you can only recognize something in somebody else because it resides in you. So when you compliment someone, when you see a beautiful quality in somebody, it's because that quality exists inside of you. It just may be dimmed.
Mm-hmm. 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 It's very much, I don't think we have the capacity to recognize something that we can't see. Right. It's just so to your point, that's exactly it. So it's there, and you can, and that's why you're able to identify it and point it out to others, right? So it's almost like if you value someone if you value smiling, when you see someone that smiles, you go, oh, that's a great smile, because that's important to you. It's very, very much along those lines.
Yeah.
As you were talking about, that again, lost, something that I've heard you sort of touch upon is helping people become unstuck. And I think that's a great word, unstuck, because it shows that within that, there's a problem being stuck, but there's a way out of it at the same time. And again, and I think we've sort of alluded to it throughout, it's the application, it's the action, but that's what's needed to also become unstuck, isn't it?
And here's what I will say is that we're never unstuck totally. We get stuck all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the awareness that, wow, I got out of that. I learned this. I can get out of this, right? Like, this is what we go through challenges for. This is why we become stuck, is because we are gaining insight of the characteristics we have, the resilience we have.
Right.
And so the more that we go through life, because it happens for us, not to us, right? Life happens for us all the time. It's to teach us qualities that we need to step further into our life, right? So maybe I had to go through that. I did have to go through that divorce to meet my husband. Like I had to go through that, right? I know that for sure. So we always go through things to grow through them, right? We say we go through what we grow through, or we go through what we grow through. And it's literally, that's what life is all about. So we're going to get stuck.
Right.
Time and time and time again, but it's finding that wiggle room and saying, okay, wait, okay, this will work. So I'm going to try it. Right. And I also need to say, like, we're going to make mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah. And mistakes are good.
Yeah.
We fail forward, right? So we keep trying and trying. So I really get people to really focus on what their vision for their future is, and not being stuck on what is presented in front of them. Right. I get you to really tap into a different energy than the one you're currently in.
Right. So I've got this analogy of the hills and valleys of life, right? So we're going to go down, and then do you want to stay down, or do you want to eventually come up, right? And so I oftentimes, I'll when I talk to people, I'll give the analogy of a boulder in our pathway, and it's our job to get past that boulder, because on the other side is where all the great stuff lies, all the fun stuff, the things that are waiting for us. We just got to get there, and if we choose not to take action and get past it, then we'll never get what's intended for us, right? So
there's a beautiful, one of the spiritual laws is the laws of polarity, the universal laws, and in order to experience the bliss, we have to experience the contrast, right? We have to go through all the bad stuff to say, I know I don't want this over here, but guess what? If this exists, then this has got to exist, right? It's like, we know what love feels like because we've experienced hate, right? We know what bad feels like because we've experienced good. It's the same thing. So we have to go through these things to literally know what we want and what we don't want. And so I really say, when we are going through something of contrast, the beautiful part of that is, oh, okay, this is where I'm going to grow. This is a point of inception for me that I'm about to level up.
It's really key, as you're talking about. It's very key to me that as you're going through this, there's importance or significance in being aware of what's happening. So you can ask yourself those questions as to, like, what does this serve, or why am I going through this, or what can I learn from it? Like there's a significance in just almost like having your eyes wide open and paying attention to all the clues, because they definitely are there.
I think they are there, and most of the time we don't see them until we're past it.
Mm,
But one of the things we can do is not focus on what's in front of you,
right. Okay.
right? And what a lot of the work that we do, it's about paying attention to what you would love, right? So instead of, maybe you lost your job, instead of wallowing in that, it is a reality. Yes, I get it. It's what
Yep.
you're going
Yep.
through.
For sure.
But instead of doing that, you want to ask, what would I love? What kind of job would I love? Okay, what kind of hours would I want to work? Where would I like to be located? What kind of role would I like to play? I want you to step into that energy, because that energy is more proactive and more empowering than what everything that you don't want, because that's going to give you more of that, right? It's
Right.
not uplifting to feel that stuff.
Mm,
That's not going to give you hope. It's going to make you feel more down,
right.
right? So we really want to focus on shifting
Yeah.
and thinking about, okay, so we know what we don't want, the situation we're in right now. What can we do? What do we have control over right now?
Yep.
The thing that you always have the most control over is your thoughts.
Yes. Yes.
And we tend to let our default thought, which is really wired for negativity, because our brain's main function is to keep us small, safe, not to do anything that's outrageous or
Right.
uncomfortable.
Right.
So our default thoughts are always negative ones. Oh my God, what if that's going to happen? What if this happens? What if I lose my, like, that's how we think, right? But when we learn that we actually have control over that, and we
Mhm.
can actually tell those voices to like sit down,
Yes.
right? Like, okay, yeah, I hear you, you're there, but you're not what I want to listen to.
Right.
So I'm going to listen to
Right.
this instead,
Right.
right? These are some ways that we can actually step into the life that we want versus what we're being
Mm.
dealt.
It's funny because, as you know, one of the things I was thinking about is that process of figuring yourself out, and
Mhm.
those are some of the things that you've got to do to get there, right?
Yep.
And acknowledge what things are happening to you. Put everyone in a corner that shouldn't be in your pathway, get them out of your way, and
Yep.
focus on the direction you're going on. And so, again, when you're talking about figuring out who you are, which is particularly important for the women that you work with, because they are, we talked earlier about them feeling lost or not having that sense of self or identity, they've got to take those steps. And so I'm glad that you
Yep.
also touched on
But
that.
let's not get it twisted. Men go through this too.
Yes.
Oopsie. Sorry, Audrey.
No worries. No worries.
Sorry, let's not get it twisted. Men go
Mhm.
through this stuff too.
Yep.
And, like even my husband he's a coach too. And we talk about men changing their identity over time. I mean, the whole thought process of men having to be the breadwinner and
Yes.
supporting the
Yeah.
family, and how they're
Yep.
losing their identity, because that's really changing, right? Or as you get older, testosterone levels change and things change, right? So
Yes.
this is all a process that we all go through.
Yeah.
It's just that, women, I think, have been really conditioned
Mhm.
over the years to sacrifice themselves so much.
Yeah, yeah. Those social constructs have been built
Yeah.
that everyone's trying to fit into. That they should be just torn down to begin with, and
Yes.
let people be free and live their lives and not worry about what they should be or who they're
Yes.
supposed to act like, be like. So
Yes.
I agree with you there, Robina. This has been such a great conversation, and I'm so glad that we've taken the time to chat. And I do want to sort of ask you one last question, and very much in line again with this podcast about and how people can be more bold and how they need to be audacious to sort of step in that world. I don't know if you can talk about the significance of taking that first step, because it's often the hardest. It's often the
Yeah.
ones that people deliberate the most about. But what I've often found is that, well, after they've taken that first step and they've started to build some momentum, off they go.
Yeah. I think it's asking yourself, what would you love and what do you want? And we have one life to live, and yours is an audacious one, right? But we have to be bold to take chances on ourselves. I did a TikTok today about, we tend to be everyone else's biggest cheerleaders and not our own. And you have one life to live, and you have to live it on your terms. And if you're not bold enough to take those big steps, then you need to lock arms with somebody that's going to help you take those steps with you. Right. So find support systems, daydream about what you really want and just go for it, because you'll never know unless you try. And life's biggest heartache is really feeling like you've never gone after the things that you want and regretted life. So I would say, you just have to go for everything that you want in life. And listen, some doors are going to slam in your face, and that's okay, because you still went for it. You will never know what you're made of unless you don't try.
Oh, that's awesome. Robina, that's such a wonderful, wonderful point to close on. And again, I thank you for sharing. For our listeners that wanted to catch up with you or learn more about your work, and where could we send them?
On Instagram, it's Robina Walling. On my email, my website is robinaabramsonwalling.com. But you can catch me on Instagram.
That's it. You like it there, don't you? I guess
I do. It's easy for me. My kids are like, Facebook's for old people now. So,
I get it.
Yeah.
I was given the same message too. I got kids.
Right.
Well, listen, Robina, I really appreciate again you taking the time to do this. It's a fabulous chat, and all the best. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
All right then.
Bye-bye.
Back we are here on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to Robina for joining me and really sharing some important thoughts and insights around empowerment and when it comes to empowering others and how we can take control of our own lives regardless of what others might think and how they might feel about it. And you heard Robina sort of touched upon in her story that finding your way sometimes can be lonely, or it might involve you being selfish, or people may not accept it because you're operating differently than the way they're normally used to, and you're not available for them. But regardless of that, it still is an important step to go through, and one I would encourage all of us to take that walk. Robina left us with so many great points, but there's just one thing that I take from my conversation with her. It would be this. The act of empowering others or putting power into has the ability to change lives in profound ways by providing individuals with the confidence they need to prosper in both their personal and professional lives. While there are many instances in ways this can be done, things like building a sense of trust, offering words of encouragement, or even constructive feedback can all leave individuals feeling empowered to do more than they ever thought possible. Empowered individuals have a positive self-view of themselves, which is essential to our overall well-being. A positive self-perception has a real impact on our emotional, our physical health, our mental fitness, and dramatically increases our chances of achieving our most audacious goals. Hey, listen, if you haven't registered for email notifications of the podcast, please know that you can do so simply by heading over to bestaudaciouslife.com, enter in your email address, and you'll be alerted every time we've got brand new content that comes out. We've reached the end of another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast, and as always, I gotta send a big shout out to our listeners. Your audaciousness, your support is outstanding and so much appreciated, and I encourage you to keep it going. Thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.